So hi everyone, welcome back to another CAPS video. The purpose of these videos is to help high school students as well as their family to learn more about secondary institutions in Canada. My name is Charlotte and I am a grade 10 student studying in Richmond Hill. Today we invited a special guest, Juliana, a current undergraduate student studying at the University of Waterloo. Can you please introduce yourself to our audience, Juliana?
Yeah, so hello, my name is Juliana. I'm a full-time second-year student at Waterloo Architecture.
All right, so our first question will be, why did you choose the University of Waterloo over other schools?
So when I was choosing universities, Waterloo was really appealing to me because of their co-op program, like most people already know. But for architecture specifically, I was drawn in by the study term that we have in Rome in our 5th year. And also our program is really focused on design. I think it's very rigorous and specialized, and I thought that would be very challenging but also beneficial.
How is the application process for your program? Any recommended extracurricular activities for high school students? And do you need any supplementary essays?
So our program has a pretty intense application process in terms of grades. So that's the first round. It's not that, you don't need such high grades, but the most important part is actually the interview and portfolio. So first you have to pass the grades check, which is about, I think on the website it should be like mid 80s, mid to high 80s. Of course, the higher average, the better. And after that, you have to write the AIF, which is the admissions information form for anyone going to Waterloo Engineering. This is basically a bunch of questions that you answer in paragraph form or check things off. The more extracurriculars you have, the better, which means you can talk more about experience in leadership or anything. It would be great if you were in clubs, started a club, or in other organizations. And after you pass the grade area or the grade checkpoint, you get selected for interviews. So at this point, there's still quite a few students in this interview process. Each person will go to the campus. Well, this was before the pandemic, but for the interview, you go to the campus, you bring your portfolio of personal work, and that includes anything creative. So for me, I brought my artwork, both in all sorts of different media. Around 14 pieces was what I brought. Once you go to the interview, that's the basis of what they ask you. Like, can you explain this piece? Can you talk about this one? And they ask questions about you as well. And on the same day of your interview, there's a English writing test called a Précis. The Précis is essentially a test in how well you can have reading comprehension as well as summarizing skills. So we are to read about a 5-page paper, an academic article. And then after that, you are told to summarize it in 1 paragraph, I think. And then after, you have to summarize it in 1 sentence. So just being able to practice that is already very helpful for that. Mm-hmm.
So our next question is actually quite long. It involves multiple questions in it. So could you describe your program a little bit more? And what classes do you take? And how is the workload?
Our program is very specialized, as I said before, which in first year we didn't have a choice for our courses. It's already laid out for everyone. We don't have electives until 3rd year, which means all the courses are you don't really have a choice what you do. But the courses themselves, they will include design studio, building construction, environmental design, cultural history, visual and digital media, and structures, which is physics, like forces and stuff, is taught from 2nd year forward. So those courses that I listed were the 1st year courses that you would most likely have. And in terms of workload, the workload is generally quite heavy. And we realized, once we got into the program that there wasn't a lot of free time. But it is a difficult program, but I also think it's very rewarding. There's always something to work on, so it really builds time management skills and independence. Noteworthy is the co-op program that starts in the 2nd year and in your second term of second year, so 2B. From then on, you will have alternating work and school terms. And something to note is that because of the pandemic, our year was given additional free term, which means that you're allowed to have one more term where you don't do co-op work, like it's a free term and you'll still be able to graduate. So before it was only you're allowed one, now we get two. The future goals that I have for myself is just to architectural firms, because each firm has different values, different aesthetics, and what they focus on is very different. So I want to be able to be more diverse in what I do, as well as creating like a better environment and contributing to a greater good somehow. I also want to enter more competitions, like architecture competitions with my friends or peers in our own spare time, as well as learn more softwares to explore my own creative journey.
What do you like best about your program?
So what I like best about my program is I think about how everyone around us are very close-knit and very like-minded individuals. So since the selection process is so rigorous and you end up with only about 75 students in your year, which is significantly less than most university programs, everyone is generally easy to work with, like easy to talk to and work with. I also like how we delve into like a lot of different areas of expertise. So for example, model building, hand sketching and drafting, digital softwares and technology, as well as art and literature. So I find that a lot of people have a lot of room to explore what they find interesting, and eventually everyone's style of work will become evident in their own projects.
So, what are some interesting things you didn't know about the architecture program until you studied there? Or just give us some fun facts about your program.
Yeah, so some interesting facts about our program would be, I think, how easy it is to see everyone all the time. So because we're an architecture campus, which is 30-minute drive away from Waterloo main campus, everyone around you is in the same program, and we don't have a lot of contact with people on main campus. And also our campus is located in a small town. So since we live in a small town, everyone's always like bumping into each other, either on the street, the grocery store, or other places, which is like heartwarming, and you kind of miss that a lot with online schools, so you don't get to interact with them as much, which I found was a bit sad. But another thing I didn't know about our program was, I think, how often we had to buy our own materials for model building. So for us, most of our projects all need a physical model, so like a tiny building, and it's like cute and stuff, and we have to make it ourselves, right? But the material cost is not included with your tuition. So many times we have to go like to Home Depot, Lowe's, Home Hardware, and look for like wood pieces or like all of those materials. And it was kind of funny at one point when everyone was using the same material, and I think Cambridge like ran out of like that material. One more thing, if people end up, applying here and you get in and you're building models, I think it's really good to just look in like the recycling area. It sounds bad, but it's not that bad. like the area where people like put the materials that they're not using anymore, because that way you can save like a lot of money and you can get a lot of good stuff. I just sound like someone who goes in the trash, but I'm not, I assure you.
Yeah, that's very fun fact. So, what are some what are some clubs or any opportunities you Waterloo architecture students have access to?
Like I said before, we don't have plenty of free time outside of our schoolwork, but some clubs that I know of or am part of. So one of them is called Forum Lab. It's a student-led initiative that focuses on digital media and installation work. We are not located on main campus, so a lot of the clubs that we do are all like architecture centered. Another thing is called Wow House. It's a very art centric initiative for students to like explore different methods of representing themselves in terms of like visual arts or digital media. So a lot of these things are similar in a sense, and I think there's also like a few athletic initiatives, but of course it's admittedly not as much or as diverse as what you would find on campus.
All right, so our last question today is probably the most concerning one for our high school students, especially for those who want to study architecture in Waterloo. So, what are 3 tips you can share with high school students who want to go to U Waterloo, specifically the architecture program, and about the online format since school moves to online?
Yeah, so it was quite interesting for us too, since we were the ones transitioning from real life to online. So we started online school near the end of March in first year, and it was kind of smoother than I thought. So we started through Zoom at first, and after we moved to Microsoft Teams and WebEx. So in comparison to other programs in university, we may have a much greater impact from switching to online because so much of our studio course, which is our biggest course, is now reduced to online presentation of our work, while in reality we would have shown sketches and models to the profs in person and discussed with them in person. So now the way we deal with crits are through the website Miro and also one-on-one calling through Microsoft Teams. So I think for people going into university online or architecture specifically online, for studio, you have to become familiar with presenting your work in a very clear and concise way. I find that with online, it's even more necessary because like the profs have been sitting in front of their laptop for like the whole day. So they don't have that much attention to like spare as if it was in real life. And you need to be able to present your work in a way that's easily digestible. And you need to know exactly what you want to discuss and what issues need to be addressed with your work. And another thing, which is more applicable towards everyone, is attend your lectures. So since it's online, it's really tempting to sleep in and then watch your lecture in the afternoon or something. But I think if you attend them, it will be much better for you like throughout your whole day and in future. Always attend them because later on you're going to have even more work to deal with and not as much motivation or time to watch the recordings. And lastly, this was always relevant for architecture students even before a pandemic, but I think now it's just like even more important. But for architecture students, we deal with a lot of very high power processing hefty software. So visually, you need a lot of like processing power for your laptop. So that's why all of us tend to buy gaming laptops because it has enough processing power to run, like for example, Photoshop, Illustrator, Rhino, and V-Ray, which are all very heavy programs. So that in itself is already something that you have to get for yourself before coming into the program. But now it's like having a digital, like a monitor, so like a bigger screen to connect with your laptop, which would be much better since everything is online. So we're going to be spending even longer on screens. So it's just something to consider. And I think another thing that would be worth talking about is many applicants interested in applying to architecture always ask, like, do we need to learn any of the softwares beforehand? And the answer is basically if you have time, it never hurts to do so. For me, I went into the program absolutely blind. I didn't know Photoshop or Illustrator, so I found myself at a considerable learning curve, but eventually you will end up being proficient. It's just a matter of how easy it is. And you're not expected to know any of the softwares beforehand, really. For our 3D modeling software, Rhino, and rendering software, V-Ray, and it's very expensive without the student license, so we don't suggest anyone try to get that. It's like, so that would, you want to wait until like you're actually in school. They will give you a cheaper version. If you ever want to practice like those things or watch like tutorials, it's always helpful, but it's not necessary.
All right, so thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us today, Juliana. And that's all questions we have. For those watching, if you have any questions, feel free to contact us on social media or leave a comment down below. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you guys in the next CAPS video.